Welcome back to Ask GMBNTech. This is our weekly questions and answer show. If you've got any questions in relation to videos we've put out recently, or just with good old-fashioned motorbike tech, be that on digital shock pressures and tyre pressures, weird tools like this one which is used on a Fox 34 stepcast fork, or anything else in between. Any questions, let us know in the comments. Use that hashtag AskGMBNTech and we'll get you involved in the show. Okay, so first question this week is all about a squeaky pedal. Now we've all had one of those and no one wants a squeaky pedal, do they? So it's just from Daniel Wilmot. Hi guys, loving the channel. It's really motivated me to get back into biking after shamefully having been away from it too long. Don't worry about that. As long as you're back, that's all that matters. There's a few things I need to relearn, especially pulling a manual, which is driving me crazy as I can't find a balance point. Go to a field slightly uphill for that one. Get to learn your balance point. You've got to loop out a couple of times in order to sort of figure out when you've gone too far, and then just master your back brake and you'll get it. Don't worry. Persistence. Okay, so I have a set of Stamp 1 pedals, and after only a few rides, one pedal isn't spinning freely and is squeaking constantly. Would I need to take them apart to fix this on a new pedal? Well, firstly, on a new pedal, it shouldn't really be doing that. Of course, you're going to get any sort of faulty product can escape out into the wild as such. So you're going to get these things from time to time, but really it shouldn't be happening with a pedal like that. So first port of call, if you're not willing to deal with it yourself, would be where you got it from, maybe your local bike shop, something like that. Second port of call is to have a go yourself. Now, thankfully, they're really easy to take apart. Now, I don't actually use that pedal, but I have got one here that I've borrowed for this. I had to get one in. Now, it's a pretty simple pedal. Okay, all you have is your axle that runs through it. You've got a cap on the end. You've got a little washer here that uses up the distance between the cap and the bearing, and you slide the axle out. And the only thing that I can think of that would be squeaking on a brand new pedal is if there's a little rubber seal in here. Now, if that is dry, that could well be your culprit. So I'm just quickly going to whip this one apart live now. Take off this little plastic cap on the end here. Need to take out that little plastic washer that I was just telling you about. It just slides straight on out, nice and simple. And then you want to get your 8mm socket. Ooh, would help if I put a socket end in, wouldn't it? Socket end in, and I'm going to use a 8mm Allen key. There we go. Now the axle will just slide on out, as you can see. On the inside you've got the bush, yeah, and you've got a bearing at the other end. Now, this little rubber seal here, this little fella, you might just be able to see that. I'll put a little close up on screen. Where that basically goes into the pedal there, if there's anything here that's not grease, if it's a bit dry perhaps, drier than this, it could squeak. That's really all I can think of. So a bit of fresh grease. Now, you don't need much grease on these bushes, so they do tend to work really well. However, if it's exceptionally dry, then perhaps that's what's squeaking. But that's all you need to do. Dead simple. Bit of fresh grease in there. Slide it back together. Make sure that seal is up against the body. Put that 8mm nut back in. Put the spacer back in. Put the end cap back on. And hopefully, you'll be creak and squeak free. No one wants a squeaky pedal today. Okay, so next up is from Judson Smith. Hey Doddy, I'm looking to extend my 100mm travel RockShox fork. I want to extend it to around 130, but I don't know how much I can safely extend it to. Dude, you didn't say which model fork it is. It does vary on the wheel size and the model itself. It all has different capabilities. I'm just going to throw a chart on screen that I literally just searched for online and you can find out. Now basically RockShox have a bunch of different settings, so if I just click on this one myself, this one is just talking about the Debonair upgrade kit, and it tells you how long a fork travel you can go to with different models of fork. Now on this chart, as you can see on screen that I still haven't got on my computer, there's Lyric, Pike, Revelations and Yaris, dealing with 27.5s, 29-inch, and it tells you about the desired wheel travel, the maximum you can get up to. So for example, on a Revelation 2018 models up to current day, you could have from 120 to 160mm, so that would be as far as you could go. So if yours, well, you say yours is 100mm travel fork, there isn't one on here listed as 100, but you need to list your one online and you'll find a similar chart to this one, and it will tell you what you need, and it'll even tell you a part number for the upgrade kit, and that's basically one of these. If I reach over here, it will be this component, which is the air shaft. That is all you need. It needs to be longer or shorter to correlate to the amount of travel you need. Okay, next up. Oh, actually, some responses to the quick release question from last time I did the show. So someone was having a problem with a quick release coming undone, basically, or the wheel coming loose in the fork, and I was like, that's really dangerous. So loads of you were really kind and were helping out on the community in the comments, which I absolutely love. Like, all of you, like, thank you for just being really cool. Like, this is one of the best things about GMBNTech in particular, I think, is you guys. You're guys and girls, I mean that in a non-disrespectful way. You're all brilliant, and thank you for chipping in. So I just want to read out a couple of great answers from responses. First one's from Ivan Subotic. He says, I have the same problem. Front wheel moving in a rigid carbon fork under braking with disc brakes. When I started using quick releases, they were ultralight titanium and alloy ones. Yep, okay. They were not worn, they were brand new. But they could simply not keep the wheel in place as firmly as the Shimano ones. That's a lesson for you there. So I switched to heavier Shimano quick releases, XT deal ones. Problem solved. Yeah, so sometimes you do just need a better thing to do it with. Next one is from Sam Huffman, who says, RE was slipping quick releases. I've seen this and experienced it on mountain bikes and road bikes. The common theme, open cam quick releases. So he elaborates a little bit more there. The solution in my experience is to only buy Shimano quick releases. There you go, back to square one again. They're not light or cheap, but they are good. A few years back, I bought a bulk of Shimano quick releases and replaced every Salsa or KCNC or whatever on all of my bikes with Shimano. Never had one slip again. So there you go. So if you are having a problem with your quick release slipping, maybe it's time to just get a Shimano one and be done with it. Next up is from Jasper Melville. Hey GMBN, I'm in the market for my second bike and I'm looking for a full suspension. Is it better to buy a high-end second-hand old bike from something like 2013, which is cheaper, or a more expensive but more entry-level modern bike? Okay, well, straight out, I'm going to refer you to a video I made on how to buy a bike, and it deals with all of these sorts of things. There's going to be a link to that video, Jasper, in the description underneath this one. Now, buying a second-hand bike is great because you can get a really good bike for not much money, which is brilliant for you. The downside is you need to consider a few things. How long are you going to keep the bike? Are you going to want to spend money on that bike, keeping it going? If so, consider things like legacy or older standards. For example, if you're buying a bike from 2013, it may well have a 135mm quick release back end. Getting components for those is a little bit harder than it is for more modern bikes which have a Boost 148mm back end on them. So if you're buying a second-hand bike, unless you're buying one that's deliberately vintage or older, I would be cautious, unless there's a particular model that you want that has those things, of buying a bike with standards that are out of date. I mean, you can still get a really good second-hand bike that'll be a bit newer, maybe 2015, 2016, that will have those correct standards on there. So just be cautious. The 2013 is just a little bit the other side, where things were still non-boost front and rear, and you would have seen a lot more quick release on mountain bikes. Look for bolt through, even the bolt through quick releases, they're a lot better and they're better for purpose. But check out that video, I promise you there will be some good tips in there. If nothing else, there'll be 3 or 4 great tips you hadn't considered. So check that one out, Jasper, and good luck buying the bike. Whatever you do is going to be great, I'm sure of it. Okay, next up is from Chris Farmsworth. Doddy, great content, but I have an issue with valve stem splits on inner tubes. I'm running 27.5-inch twin wall rims. I'm literally going through inner tubes every few days. I've deburred the holes in the rims. I've also slotted a piece of inner tube over the valve to protect the stem, but it still splits. Is it because I'm running too low a tyre pressure and the valve is rubbing due to tyre movement? Yep, it could be. All right, a few more things. All right, so there's quite a few things at play here. Yeah, that could well be one. But ultimately, the two most important things, the tyre fit. If your tyre is loose, when I say loose, it means very easy to put on. It won't actually be loose and rattling around. You know what I mean. If it's loose putting on, then there is a chance under heavy acceleration or braking, the tyre can move slightly, and that's going to twist and turn around the rim. Only, you know, not an amount to notice when you're riding, but an amount to put a strain on things like the valve. It sounds like that could be happening to you. But also, this can happen with tight tyres as well. And if you're not running one of the little lock nuts, okay, so this is a tubeless valve, but you just have to imagine it's an inner tube valve because they're the same basically. One of these little lock nuts that goes on the inside of the wheel side, not the inner tube side, and screws down. That holds and clamps the valve in place. Now, many people think you don't need these on inner tubes. They think you only need them on tubeless valve stems for the reason it holds the valve in place to make it airtight. That's not necessarily true. You do need them on inner tubes as well, because as soon as that valve stem can move, that wiggling is going to tear around here, which is what's happening to you. So I would check that your valve stem can't move, and it'd also check your tyre fit. Other than that, tricky one. Any other suggestions from the community? Anyone down there got any better ideas? Next up is from Jack Wrightson. Why is my Trans-X dropper post shaft moving left to right and making my seat shake? Okay, all dropper posts, they're telescopic by nature of design, and obviously a telescopic nature is round tubes, so they could move around, like, you know, like the forks that are behind me there. So to get around that, they use basically a groove and a key. The keys are made of brass, so they are designed to wear before the groove, because the groove will be machined into the post itself. That will be at the bottom of that upper tube there. Those little brass keys, they'll be made with a certain tolerance. On some brands, there'll be more wiggle than on others. Now, it tends to happen when your seat post gets old, because that component is designed to wear. Get your seat post serviced. One of the things that's replaced, as well as seals and bushings on the inside, is those brass keys, because of the fact they're designed to wear and you will get more waggle. So it could be, if yours is a new post, it might just be the bit of waggle it has, or if it's an older post, it sounds like it could be a bit worn. If you're unsure, because I can't see your post, ask your local bike shop for a bit of advice on it. But most posts do have a bit of movement, and after a while, to be fair, you don't really notice it. It's just kind of how it is, unfortunately. Next up is from Gillespie MTB. Doddy, I live in Victoria, Australia, with lots of dry dirt, and I was wondering what Maxxis tyre combination would be best for these conditions. I'm riding a Norco Fluid FS3. I'm pretty new to sport, so take that into consideration. Okay, all right, well, there's lots of great options from Maxxis. They make loads of different tyres. Kind of hard to make a specific sort of recommendation, but some good tyres. So the Icon and the Icon and the Aspen, they're on screen right now. Really good low rolling resistant tyres, so they're going to roll nice and fast. Really good in dry conditions. It's got low profile tread. Those two tyres do have a bias towards XC riding. They're very lightweight. If you're riding in areas that are a bit rocky or thorny, then you might want to consider something with slightly heavier casing. I believe you can get the Aspen with slightly heavier casing, but the Ardent might be a better choice for you. Now, they make a tyre called the Ardent and the Ardent Race. Now, the Ardent Race has a lower profile main tread and with smaller tread on there, but it has a more accentuated shoulder. That's the tyre I actually prefer out of the two. But the Ardent is a great all-rounder. Rolls fast, it's predictable, brilliant in dry conditions, and I reckon that might be the tyre for you. But check both of those out, the Ardent and the Race. Here they are side by side on screen. You'll see that they're very similar tyres. Also, if you wanted something a bit more hardcore, doesn't sound like it from your ability, you might want to look at a different combination, front and rear. Something like the Minion, which is it's actually a downhill tyre, but they're making different casings suitable for all sorts of riding. Minion DHF is a really good front tyre. It's pretty old now, but it's about 20 years old by design, but it kind of says a lot that they're still making that tyre. It rolls nicely, it's very secure, very confidence inspiring, but not necessarily fastest. So if you have that up front, that gives you your braking power and gives you nice control, which is great as someone that's new to sport, and it affords you the ability to have something faster on the rear. So you could have something like the Ardent or the Ardent Race as a rear tyre, or you could have something a little bit more aggressive like their Aggressor tyre on the rear. But that is quite a hefty combination. I would say if you're going to put a Minion on the front, perhaps look at something like the Ardent on the rear, and that would be a good combo for you. If you fancy something that bit quicker, the Minion semi-slick is what you want to be looking at. Yeah, they're just semi-slick, so it's got the full shoulders, but it's got like a buzzsaw tread on the top. Really fast rolling, but not too good under braking, as you'd imagine. So if confidence is what you're looking for, that's not the one. So I'd go for a Minion DHF on the front and an Ardent on the rear. Or if you want something that bit faster rolling, you could even do the Aggressor on the front and the one of the Icons or something on the rear. There's a few great options. The best option though, really, as always, is find out what your local riders are using. It gives you a really good idea of what works. And the last question this week is from the aptly named Shift MTB. I've had a nightmare over time keeping derailleurs going for more than a few rides. See what we did there with his name? NX, GX, X01, Shimano, it doesn't matter. They always blow out or bend or pop from underneath me. Riding with some very good people, I've been told my shifting technique is spot on. Hangers are constantly being straightened. At 220 pounds, am I just too heavy of a person for aggressive riding? Well, no, for starters. This has caused me to look into gearboxes. All right, well, we'll get rid of gearboxing in a minute. Put it this way, right? So your weight has no bearing on the derailleur itself. Yeah, unless you're putting all that horsepower through and you're shifting poorly, which it sounds like you're not, according to what your mates say, there's no problem with that side of things. But there are a few things to factor in here. There's a lot of moving components in a transmission, and if your derailleur is not perfectly aligned, and if everything else is, there's something just not quite right, then that will more than likely be the culprit. I know people have just been through habits of ripping off rear mechs, and it's nothing to do with being big or heavy or riding aggressively. We're not talking about bashing on things here, because that's obviously going to damage a mech. It sounds like something could be loose in your bike. If this is repeatedly happening to you, this is very unusual. As for your weight, I don't know, 195, 200 pounds at the moment. I'm not especially aggressive on the bike, but I've never just been melting derailleurs like it sounds like you are. Honestly, I don't think that is the problem. There is definitely some sort of setup issue on your bike. Could be loose chainring, could be a bad chain line, could be your chain is too short. It could be a number of smaller things like that. Maybe the mech hanger itself is loose slightly, or it's bent to start with. There's a whole number of things. Without seeing them, the best bet really is to get your bike shop to check your frame and check the rest of your transmission, not just the derailleur. Now you say, just read out your bit about the gearboxes. It's caused me to look at gearboxes. A common complaint with them seems to be drag and friction. Has anyone tried isotropic finishes on the gears to reduce this? I'm looking for a good fix to stay on the trails. Well, gearboxes could definitely be the way to go, but that's a pretty expensive fix, to be fair. I've ridden a few over the years, and really the only one that's had a lasting sort of effect on me considering gearboxes has been Pinion. I think their stuff is excellent, but not without issues. Obviously, it costs a fortune to get one of those. They're a lot of money. Arguably, if you offset that against the amount of stuff you'd spend on an external transmission, it could be better. Of course, they're running in oil, so I forget what the service interval is. It's something like 10,000 kilometers. You don't even need to look at the things, because everything will be running nice and smooth. You can do an oil change and it'll keep on running smooth. Ergo, though, there is a problem with them. It's not that much of a problem, and I think this will change over time. Because of the sheer size of the gears on them, they're tiny, really small gears. They're a bit unlike car gears or motorcycle gears, where the actual gears are bigger. Think how small these gears are, and they're running around inside oil. There's just generally a little bit more friction. The manufacturers will say that there's not any more friction, but you can feel it definitely when pedaling. Like, I'm sure of it. I'd have to do a back-to-back test, but there is definitely a difference, and people that have ridden gearboxes for extended times will tell you that there is a difference, and they did notice it, but perhaps they've tuned into it after a while, so it's not all bad. And there's also all the benefits you get from it. No mech hanging off your bike to smack off, easy cleaning of your bike and your transmission, nothing to fret about. You've got the option of going for a more heavy duty chain on there as well. You don't necessarily have to have the latest in 12-speed super light tech. You could have something a bit burlier on there, like a single speed style chain. You could have a completely silent bike. There's like loads of benefits to go for them. But like I said, it will need a new bike to hang one off, and they're quite expensive in their own right. So as far as the isotropic finish goes, I'm not really too sure about how this would be beneficial on mountain bikes to start with. So as far as I know, that's just essentially an amazing finish on the raw material. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the raw material, even when it looks really finely made, you'll have some kind of machining marks on it, or where it's been, I don't know, what CNC machined or whatever. The whole point of isotropic finishing is to basically reduce that down to near mirror-like finish, so it's as smooth as possible. Yeah, okay, so I guess the whole removing friction thing starts with taking every little bit of friction out. So yes, you're right, that probably could have some sort of effect. But in the grand scheme of things, with the sheer amount of small gears turning around, small components in there, I can't imagine it would have a huge effect. Interested though to hear if there's any engineers and stuff out there that know about this stuff, because I don't. Gearboxes are still relatively new in terms of bikes, even though they have been floating around for a while. They're not commonplace by any means. Something I definitely want to learn some more about, and I hope to make a detailed video on it at some point. I need to do my geeking out first though, so I can try and explain it in a way that not only makes sense to me, but hopefully you'll understand. But if anyone out there knows, please let me know or get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. And that goes for all of you with everything. Anything you want to know about bikes and tech stuff, get in touch. We love telling stories, we love helping you out. That's all there is to say really. And if you love our kit, get involved on our store, because you buying our kit makes our jobs a lot more fun, because we like seeing you wearing it. That's it for this week. See you soon. Ta-ra.